After the 20-sided die, nothing is more iconic to Dungeons & Dragons than the Dungeon Master screen. But then why did D&D not include a screen among its many awesome tools in the new starter set? Well, let's see if we can tease an answer from the starter set's lead designer and get answers from you who I polled about using or not using DM screens. And yeah, I got my own thoughts about how a screen might make your game a little less fun. Because I'm Bob, this rainy forest is where we're going to learn about how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and thank you to everyone who responded to the poll. Let's start with a few of your responses on to use a screen or to not use a screen. Screens? Never used them. Waste of space. Why not let people see my roles as a DM? And if the game system needs that many reference notes just to run, I'd sooner not run it. I use a DM screen to hide my notes and dice rolls, but I think 90% of the time I'm actually using it as a cheat sheet to reference game mechanics. No screen. I roll 99% of my checks open. Anything that might need to be secret, notes, etc. is in a notebook or laptop. Tear down walls between players and GMs. Screens? Depends on what campaign I'm running. I use a DM screen regardless of the game for two reasons. One, it's cool. Two, I can hide images, text, minis, and props behind the screen until the perfect moment. Okay, that was just wind, but a lot of water just came down. I don't use a screen to show the honesty of the dice. And if a player is peeking at my notes, it's against the spirit of the game and they're out. Really? I use it as a shield for my notes more than anything. I can't recall a single instance I've ever actually referenced a chart on one in over 30 years of gaming. Well, my DM screen is a laptop. I don't know if that counts because I roll in the open. Okay, well, I think when you're trying to tell a cohesive story, fudging a dice roll is an important tool to have. Screens. I used one for 25 years, believing it was the way, TM. Now I embrace rulings and improv-heavy open tables and prefer a more free-form dialogue with my players, which makes it feel like I'm less distant, more emotionally present, and more open to their ideas at my tables. It gives a clear boundary between my space and the rest of the table, plus I keep my notes in a physical sketchbook, and without it, my players would definitely peek at my notes. Alright, hopefully you noticed I did kind of cherry pick some of those responses to highlight the sharp distinctions in Game Master philosophy when it comes to screens. It's my space versus it's a waste of space. Rules reference versus refereeing, and probably the big one, hiding notes and fudging dice versus an open table. So please, pick your poison with any one of those discussion-worthy topics and share your thoughts in the comments while I tell you about today's awesome sponsor that I literally use every day, my wedding ring. Once a cheap hunk of metal that was too big, it is now a Thorum ring. Thorum makes rings from the coolest materials: meteorite, dinosaur bone, Damascus steel, whiskey barrel, World War II rifle stocks, and more. All materials, including their gems, are ethically sourced, come with a lifetime warranty for replacements, and come with a free walnut box and silicone activity ring, which I was looking forward to as someone who has always been irrationally nervous about getting a ring stuck on my finger. That's why I don't really do jewelry, and part of why my original wedding ring was cheap and too big. But this time, I used Thorum's ring sizer first, and now I have a comfortable, unique ring that I can proudly wear every day. And if you want to save 20% on such a ring of your own, use promo code BOB20, that's BOB20, at checkout on thorum.com. And a nature break for this kind of gross looking but absolutely massive fungi, hand for scale. I have no idea what this is. I'm a plant guy, not a fungi guy. And sorry, you've waited long enough for the poll results. Do you, or does your GM, use a Dungeon Master screen when playing RPGs in person? A whopping 66% said yes. A mere 20% said no, and 13% said, I don't play RPGs in person. That's after a few thousand votes, a decent sample size, though, yeah, only among people who see posts from this channel, so, subscribe. And fortunately, the comments provide some nuance on that data. So as you may have seen coming, The most common type of response steered the conversation about GM screens in a different direction. Some version of, I use a screen, but not to fudge dice rolls. Instead, most folks say their screen is for organizing notes, maps, minis, props, rules info, and sometimes for hiding those things until the right moment, and even for creating an atmosphere where the game master can just feel more like a master of the game by that separation, but not by hiding dice rolls. And the second most common response focused on the same point. I don't use a screen because everything should be in the open. No hidden rolls, no hidden notes because players shouldn't be looking anyway, and also for creating an atmosphere, but a different kind of atmosphere. In this case where, yeah, there's one GM, but everyone at the table plays by the same rules, or at least plays with more transparency. However, some more niche responses said that their use of a screen depends on the game's complexity, and a bunch of people said that even in person, their laptop or tablet is like a GM screen because it organizes and hides their notes technically, but doesn't feel like a boundary between them and the players. I'm only now thinking I should have thrown a rock back in there when I first sat down to make sure there was nothing else in here. And personally, I've played and run both with and without a screen on the table, but for the last few years of my GMing, I'm in the 20% minority here. I like an open table where my players and I can share that moment of discovery every time dice hit the table. And maybe it's easy for me to say because I don't think my players could read my handwritten notes even if they wanted to. And I do have Grace World Destroyer usually DJing our session music on her laptop off to the side. And I really want to be clear, maybe I should have said this earlier in the video. That's just me. Nobody's fun is wrong here. Whatever your group finds fun is the correct way to play. But what happens when one man decides how millions of people should play D&D by stripping the new starter set of a DM screen? What kind of tyrant could do such a thing? Oh, it's just Justice Ramin Armand, an absolutely stand-up guy who spearheaded the development of perhaps D&D's most helpful box set ever? Yeah, let's see what he had to say. And we can return to actual shelter for the day. I asked him, out of all the great tools in the new D&D Starter Set, why not include a DM screen? And the official answer was this. In Heroes of the Borderlands, we wanted to encourage players and DMs to trade places. While I and many DMs play with screens, they add a degree of physical separation between the DM and the player. When you have one DM throughout an adventure, it makes sense to have that barrier to guard secrets and surprises. However, in this starter set, we wanted to remove those barriers to DMing, demystifying what it means to run a game and to show every player that they too can take on the mantle of Dungeon Master. That's also the reason we split the adventure into 3 booklets and included a tutorial section in each booklet. Those act as training wheels for new and returning DMs alike. Smiling sun emoji. Now, I found this answer a bit too good to be true because it aligns perfectly with how I would have made this decision. You may have seen my first video on this starter set praising their design goal to switch DMs during the campaign and ranting about how the role of DM has been essentially gatekept by over-mystifying it through decades of separating DM rules into their own book, and yes, through the mostly symbolic separation drawn by a DM screen. So I had to ask, was it also logistical? I was rewatching your interview on Mastering Dungeons, and you mentioned that because the set is so packed, you/the team aim to not repeat much info. For example, monsters being on the cards only, not also in the booklets. Was that part of the decision too? That the helpful info on a GM screen would have been found in the play guide anyway? And he said, that didn't have a bearing on the decision. That's more of a result of the component-forward approach. It's part of what kept the play guide shorter than rulebooks in prior sets. It also means that players can help DMs by looking up information in the play guide while a DM holds onto a monster card, for example, teaching everyone the rules rather than having them be available only to the GM. There it is. By not keeping any rules behind a screen or in a separate GM's Eyes Only book, every player is encouraged to learn the game and practice the vital RPG skill of discussing rules and deciding with your group what's the most fun. To that I say, heck yeah. And if you like that approach, please give this video a thumbs up. Check out this other video on your screen breaking down everything that is inside the new D&D Starter Set. And what the heck, join Patreon or YouTube memberships for some... YouTube memberships. Okay. Yeah, I gotta leave that one in. YouTube memberships for some cool bonus videos. Thank you, and keep building.